So with that, we are going to move on to our next session. So I have the pleasure of introducing Christine Freilich, who is our head of data governance as she makes her way for VMS here, and she is going to be leading our session on Better Together. So please, a warm welcome for Christine.
Perfect. We actually have a, what? Okay, I was gonna say, we actually have a panel. So Zora was telling me they're gonna bring the chairs up. So 4 chairs. Thank you, Todd. As he said, I lead our data governance practice at VMS. I am actually the first new hire under the Verisk Marketing Solutions flag. So I have been with the company for a whole 3 weeks. And so the first week they said, hey, you know what, we've got this event coming up. What do you think about standing up on stage and helping to moderate a panel? And I said, okay, but I'm gonna tell everybody I've only been with the company for 3 weeks. So I'm definitely still a newbie, but I am incredibly excited about being part of this organization. So like some of the other speakers we've heard today, I have come off of a pretty long history working at another company, so 20 years at another marketing services company. And so when I think about what made me decide to make that big change, and it is a big change after 20 years, for me it really came down to the belief that I have in both Infutor and Jornaya to really take advantage of what we saw today at the beginning, where we're talking about the challenges and the changes in the marketplace, to be able to really be disruptive. And so in order to do that, you have to have the culture. And so I believe Verisk Marketing Solutions has that culture. And then you also have to have the capability. So that's the data, right? That's the skills, that's the resources that we have. And for me, I just, when I talked to the team, I felt like all of those things were in place. And to me, it makes me incredibly excited about the future and where we're going together. Oh, I have music too. Okay, I'll let the music die down a little bit. So as I mentioned, we have a panel discussion today, and we have some great speakers from our leadership team. But I did ask to steal just a few minutes to talk to you guys about data governance, because of course, as the lead of that practice, I'm really passionate about data governance. And so if you kind of hearken back to what we heard from Matt and from Eli this morning, they were talking a lot about that intersection of personalization and privacy, making sure that we maintain trust, being able to do all of these things the right way. And so when I think about what we plan to do with data governance at Verisk Marketing Solutions, it's really about bringing all of those things together as one of our strategic pillars and really driving that forward in all of the plans that we make together around how we're utilizing our data and how we're partnering with our clients. So at this point, you might be wondering, what is data governance? And this is a question I get asked, I would say at an event like this, probably 10, 20 times. I think that's understandable because with data governance, it's really not a one-size-fits-all approach. So every company has a slightly different variation on what data governance is. So for many years, it was very technically driven, right? So we have companies that focus on things like data catalogs or metadata management. And then in other circumstances, it was really business orientated. So think about some of those traditional compliance organizations that some of you may have worked with and probably said bad things under your breath about those compliance organizations. And they really focus on policies and oversight committees. But I think when you take a step back and we look at the future of data governance, it really is about making sure that it's having the right people in place, it's the right processes in place, and the right technology to ensure that our data is discoverable, right? So we know what data we have, we know where it came from, we know what it means, and that we also make sure that we're handling it appropriately. That could be anything from security to our access points to making sure that we all know as data stewards that consumer data is incredibly important. In order for us to maintain trust with consumers and our partners, we really have to make sure we handle it with care and we're all accountable. I know we've heard a lot today about accountability, and when I think about data governance, it's really all about accountability. And then the last of those items is to make sure that it's being used appropriately. So for me, this is where that compliance piece comes to play. So whether it's a corporate policy, whether it's a contract we have with our partners, whether it's a consent agreement with a consumer, whether it's what's happening from a state privacy legislative point of view, we have to make sure that we're building out processes that allow us to confidently say, yes, we are handling that data appropriately and it's being used appropriately. Okay, so I'm going to try to move through this a little bit quickly because I know we've talked about this a lot already. So our industry is facing a tremendous number of challenges. And in particular, if we start to focus in on what's happening from a state privacy perspective, there are lots of things happening very quickly, right? So we know that outside of California, we now have Virginia, we've got Colorado, we just heard about Connecticut. All of these things are coming to play, and they're coming to play very quickly. And so at Verisk Marketing Solutions, we believe that if we can navigate this path correctly, we can really partner with all of you to sort of be the tip of the spear for our marketers and for our partners to help you navigate that process as well, right? So our combined and joint efforts really allows us to take advantage of these challenges versus allowing them to slow us down or burden us. And so when I think about data governance and what we are trying to pull through our entire strategy at VMS is that we see all of these challenges as opportunities. We're mindful that as we start to make sure we understand what we need to do from a privacy perspective, we're pulling that through to making sure we've got controls in place that are standardized, that are monitored, so we have a really holistic data governance program. You know, if we do all of those things, we can deliver on transparency. And so what is transparency? Transparency is trust at the end of the day. And that's what we want to build with consumers, and we also want to build it with all of you. So all of you in the audience that are marketers, that are partners, that trust is incredibly important to us. So that's sort of the end of my data governance public service announcement. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and move us on to the stars of the hour who also have music. So Eli, Todd, John, come on up. Okay, so as I mentioned on the onset, I'm certainly the new kid on the block. So I am incredibly excited to have these three leaders on the stage with me so that I can sort of pepper them with questions about our new business and that they can also really articulate to all of you how Infutor and Jornaya are coming together to really bring you all new value. So that being said, we're going to start with intros. Eli, you can start since you're at the end.
Great. Thanks, Christine. So my name is Eli Schwartz. I'm Chief Strategy Officer for Verisk Marketing Solutions. I came into Verisk through the acquisition of Jornaya. So I've been with Verisk now for about a year and a half. Been with Jornaya for almost 9 years. So joined as an early employee back when we were an early stage startup. Had the opportunity to wear a lot of different hats in our business over the years as we evolved. And now have the privilege of leading strategy and corporate development as we're looking to merge together Infutor, Jornaya, and Contact State and enter this next phase of growth as Verisk Marketing Solutions.
Todd?
Hi, everyone. My name's Todd Schoner. I'm VP of Strategy at Verisk Marketing Solutions. I come from the Infutor acquisition. Prior to Infutor, I was at company mParticle in the customer data platform space. leading the product organization there. And then prior to that, similar company, Signal, which both those companies were really focused on how do you help brands collect and manage their first-party data in a way that's optimal for all the different uses of that data. So been in the data space a while, also did some lead generation work at a small startup that was doing lead generation for elective medical procedures. So have a little bit of experience from kind of different corners of the marketing space.
Okay, last but not least.
Thanks, Christine. Hi, everybody. I'm John Barnes, CTO. I came from the Infitor side as well. I've been with Infitor for a little over 5 years now. So I joined at Infitor. I'm over our software development, our IT, as well as our security stack. So our CISO reports to me, and I've been very focused on data governance and compliance to make sure that everything we're doing is safe around our data. Prior to Infitor, actually, I had the pleasure of working with Greg Johnson at Salesforce. So I was on the marketing cloud side on the product, and have been focused on cloud and mobile for the last 15 or 20 years. So excited to be here today.
Excited to have you. Okay, so once again, thank you guys for the intros. As you can tell, John's my best friend here from a data governance standpoint, where we work hand in hand. So as we bring our businesses together, I know that all of us are really taking stock of the assets that we have, as well as the customers that we serve. And so when I think about our conversation today, what I'd like to do is really circle it around our lead buyers, our lead sellers and publishers, and then our marketers as well. So just asking that we make sure we're really focusing on our audience today when it comes to our answers. With that being said, Eli, you're going to be on the hot seat first. Given your role from a strategic standpoint in really forming Verisk Marketing Solutions, can you give us some insight on what the synergies were that Verisk saw with Jornaya? And then as you started to extend into Infutor, how that vision came to life and the whole broad scope of synergies that are now seen with Verisk Marketing Solutions.
Definitely. So, this I think starts with Verisk, and back in 2020, and for those of you who are maybe less familiar with with Verisk and the business that they're in, they've built a long-standing, highly profitable business in the insurance space, primarily focused on providing risk and underwriting solutions to insurance carriers. So, they've done a great job of creating unique, differentiated data that helps carriers make decisions at the point in time of quote, and get an understanding of the consumer and the way to underwrite that risk. Back in 2020, as we started to get to know the team at Verisk, we learned that they were looking for a way to expand into the marketing space. So the way Scott Stevenson, the CEO at the time, told the story that Verisk sales reps typically they'd go visit insurance carriers, they'd take the elevator up to the top floor, to the C-suite offices, and they'd always turn to the right. They'd go down to visit with the chief risk officer, but they'd never turn left and go down to the CMO's office. And they thought there was a tremendous opportunity to expand in that area and help provide value to marketers. Around that same time, Jornaya was in a position where we were looking for a new strategic home for our business. We were looking for a partner to help accelerate our growth and enter a new phase. We had been executing for some time on this vision of helping marketers better understand when a consumer was actually in market, and if that consumer was truly in market, how to right time their communication and their outreach to somebody. But we felt like there was a much bigger bigger vision around that, or a broader set of capabilities that could help achieve what is really an end state goal of personalizing the experience and creating a better experience for the customer. So we were looking for a partner that could help fund and support M&A and inorganic growth to try to accelerate our product roadmap and accelerate the capabilities we had to bring to bear for our customers. And it turned out to be a great fit for us at the time to partner up with Verisk and start to execute on this bigger vision. Around that same time, as we entered 2021, Infutor was looking for a new strategic home for their business, and they've specialized in this area of identity resolution and having an authoritative view of the consumer, all of the history to link and match different identifiers of a consumer back to a persistent person ID, and then add in all of the attributes and characteristics of that person that could help add relevancy to what type of content should be delivered to an individual, or what they're actually likely to be interested in. So this started to come together in a way where we felt like there was an extraordinary amount of complementary value in the assets across both of these companies, where Jornaya has this rich history in understanding if and when a consumer is truly in market based on all of the shopping activity that we see across our network of over 55,000 websites where consumers comparison shop for products like insurance or a new mortgage loan. And then Infutor has this capability to understand who that person is and how to accurately resolve their identity, as well as enrich that identity with attributes or characteristics that could add more relevancy to that effort to personalize. So that vision has started to come together now as we're merging these companies together. We have a number of new things we're planning and kind of a long-term roadmap, but we've recently announced the first wave of innovation that we're looking to bring to market for all of our Jornaya customers. And as Christine just mentioned, we're orienting this first set of innovation around the customers that we serve today, which we categorize in these three groups. We have companies that buy leads and come to Jornaya to get access to data to better understand the compliance behind those leads, or to better understand the quality associated with those leads. We have lead sellers and publishers that work with us to enhance the quality of the leads they're creating on their own websites, or ensure that the leads they're creating are TCPA compliant before they sell them to a buyer. And then we also work with marketers who don't operate in the lead gen space, but are interested in enriching their first-party data assets and better understanding how to personalize their communications with the consumer. So we're thinking about ways to create capability that helps all three of those constituents. And I think we'll talk in just a minute here about some of those capabilities and how they're coming to life.
Well, thank you, Eli. That's a really great setup for the next question I have, which is going to go to Todd. So Eli started to touch a bit on Infutor's data assets, and also teed up some information on some of the new solutions that we're building out and beta testing that are really going to drive greater performance for some of the customers out there using the Intelligence and Activate product lines. So that being said, can you give us some more detail on those digital identity assets of Infutor's, and then what's actually happening in market today in terms of bringing those products together?
Yeah, so some of the things that Eli was mentioning about the complementary nature of our businesses and our data sets, you'll see in these first products that are being released. And really what the Infutor data set is, and the capabilities that we have identity resolution capabilities for the 266 million adults in the United States. What that means is, in a loan application process or any place that a consumer is exhibiting some type of buying behavior that's of interest for our clients, we're able to validate that identity and give a score to that identity on how accurate we believe that identity marker is. That's very valuable when making decisions about the lead up front. Infutor also has a pretty extensive list of attributes associated to those individuals and those households, which can be brought to bear at the time that person's displaying that in-market behavior for, again, all the different decisioning that goes into the lead purchase. So it's an early kind of indication of how we can take these complementary businesses and really amplify what Jornaya was doing, and kind of vice versa.
Thank you. John, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is infrastructure investment. So obviously, we've got a lot of data that we're bringing together from both the Jornaya side of the house as well as the Infutor side of the house. So all of that, all those buyer signals that we have, and then obviously what we heard from the identity assets perspective from Todd. So could you give us some more insight on how we're approaching this integration from a technology perspective and really the investment and the planning that we're putting in place to do that?
Sure. Yeah, I think, just to amplify a little bit like what Mohsen said earlier, Amazon is a core part of what we're doing. So Jornaya, is built in AWS, as is most of our infrastructure, but we're actually partnering closely with AWS as we look at how do we bring these two businesses together. So I think that's one of the things I'm excited by and my organization's excited by is just with that investment from Verisk is we're really doubling down on how do we bring all this data together in a very safe, compliant way, in a very performant way. I think we've heard that a lot today. Speed is very important when you're buying a lead, when you're bidding on an ad. You need answers in milliseconds, and you need to make sure that's reliable, that it's available, and it's there for you. So we're really spending a lot of time, a lot of effort on migrating all of our products together in the cloud, centralizing all of that data within AWS, and even using some of the concepts that we heard this morning from Charlene of really looking at who's our future customer, how do we drive that forward. You're working with a lot of those AWS leadership principles to make sure that we're thinking about our future customer, what are their needs going to be, and really skating to where the puck is, where the puck's going to be, not where it is today. Because I think you heard a little bit from Matt and Eli this morning about the intersection of privacy and personalization. And there's a lot of the stats that you saw this morning or that you've seen in the newspaper. There have been a lot of data breaches. We all deal in a lot of big data. Our entire company is founded on PII, so we've got all this interesting PII, which can help you as a marketer, as a lead buyer to understand your consumers. You're trusting us with your first-party data. So one of the things that we're doing is we're bringing these two organizations together and making everything available in the cloud is actually tokenizing all of that data. So what we're working on is a process, I think, which is really leading. We're not going to be on our back foot for first security or personalization, but really leading with tokenization. So what that means is all of our data, all of our PII, so the name, address, phone number, et cetera, is going to be tokenized. So what that means is not only are we kind of focusing on external security with firewalls and kind of industry-leading technology, but even internally, all that data in the database is going to be a secure token that's not visible. So even somebody internally can't take that data and expose it or accidentally put something in an S3 bucket and make it public. So when you trust us with your first-party data, we're actually going to be tokenizing that, operating on it, enriching it, cleansing it, and giving it back to you, and then detokenizing it on the way out the door. But it means that all of your first-party data that you're trusting with is tokenized so that that data is completely safe within our four walls. So we're really excited about you bringing everything to the cloud and then adding that layer of tokenization on top of it so that data is very secure.
Thank you. Todd, next one's for you. I think this is a good lead-in talking about first-party data. So I know there's certainly a renewed focus on first-party data, and part of that it was driven by what happened during the pandemic, but also the demise of the cookie. And so I'd like to get your point of view on how Verisk Marketing Solutions is really poised to deliver on that demand in the marketplace to help marketers and advertisers really empower their first-party data.
Yeah, I think the interest in first-party data and the investment that a lot of you have made and that we've seen in general around tools that help brands get their first-party data in order, collected, organized, really is driven by a lot of those things that we hear about all the time, which is those online identifiers are being deprecated and taken away. The thing that not a lot of people realize is that applies to the what are referred to as the third-party identifiers. First-party identifiers, no one really has a problem with. So in the past, I used to work at Orbitz. We used to basically outsource every function of marketing. So we had Criteo would chase people around the web and try and get them to go to Cancun if they searched for Cancun on our website and didn't do that. All of that knowledge lived outside of our walls. We deployed their pixels and they collected data. Because all those underlying technologies are going away now, brands are saying the way forward and the way that I can really get value and kind of differentiate myself is build this first-party data asset that also has the benefit of they're at the point of interaction with the consumer where they can get consent. The way that we look at it is to say, how do we help amplify those data sets? And the way that we do that, first off, is we make sure we have our house in order in terms of our data sources, the way that we're storing and tokenizing that data and protecting that data, and making sure that it's coming from reputable sources and that it's approved for certain uses. And then we're making that available to our clients to help power whatever marketing use case they're looking for. And as Eli was saying, that the great part about kind of our companies combined is we now have in-market signals all the way through, down to attributes about those individuals and all the identity markers that go with that. So it's a powerful, powerful combination.
Thank you.
Yeah, I might just adding to that, like I think, so identity resolution is probably like the foundational underpinning of a focus on first-party data strategy. And as you described, marketers are shifting away from this third-party focus on cookies, but they're trying to figure out how can I get more out of the assets that I already have, and what do I need to do to enrich those assets? If you think about where Jornaya has been over the past few years, we've focused on helping marketers take their first-party data set. So, for example, take their CRM or take current customers and monitor those current customers to see if and when they're starting to shop or showing signals of buying behavior. That capability is frankly only as good as the identity resolution that's underpinning it. So, if a marketer has the wrong contact information on an individual in their CRM that they're monitoring, we can identify that person is in market, but if they have the wrong data on them, they're not going to be able to reach that person. And we might not ever find that they're in market if we have the wrong data that we're searching for to see when that person is shopping. So, as we start to think about bringing this all together, one of the things that we're most excited about is bringing the Infutor identity resolution capability back to all of the Jornaya customers that use our Activate product, and adding that identity foundation into the capability so that any record that they're monitoring with Jornaya can actually be linked and matched and cleaned up using Infutor's persistent person ID to round out that identity and make it actually more effective and amplify the amount of data that can be delivered back through it.
Perfect.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mentioned that I came from kind of the companies in my past where we were trying to help brands build their first-party data asset. And kind of the thing that some people don't realize, even as they get deep into it, first-party data is extremely valuable. But in order to have kind of a complete and accurate picture, you need help based on that core first-party asset you're bringing. You need parties that can say, hey, this person is in market, and they're in market on a site that isn't under your control, but we can still give you that signal so you can operate on that. And identity resolution is another big piece of that, where if you're able to observe a certain behavior, but you're not able to tie it back to the history of what you know about that individual, you're at a pretty big disadvantage. So that's really kind of the foundational identity resolution capability that powers what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And know from my perspective, being able to really identify the difference between somebody who's truly in market versus somebody who's maybe aspirationally looking. When I think about the combination of Jornaya and Infutor and the identity data and the demographic data that Infutor brings to the table, it really does help distinguish the difference between the 16-year-old who's looking at the Ferrari online and somebody who actually has the capability of paying for a Ferrari. And so when you're talking about these major purchases, I think that's just incredibly powerful to be able to bring to the table. Okay, I'm going to take a slight switch here, but we talked a little bit during the earlier sessions about immersive customer experiences and what could potentially happen in augmented realities and the metaverse and wearables, and meta's all over the place, right? I'm trying to determine if I want to buy an Oculus. It seems like a lot of fun, but I potentially could be wasting a lot of my time if I did that. So that being said, I'm really curious to get your opinions on how those types of experiences may impact marketing and how you see Jornaya and Infutor together being able to really help through that change and how we would be able to manage to those new channels. So I know it's a little bit out there, right? But I'm going to test your strategic skills here.
Yeah, I'm happy to kind of kick things off. I think when you look at all those emerging platforms, some of them are still a little ways out there and still developing, but it's just a continuation of what we've seen. We didn't have cell phones not that long ago. We didn't have tablets not that long ago. So there's always going to be ways that people interact, and in our world, those are opportunities to deliver the right message to those individuals at the right time, right person, right message, right time, right? So as those things go, I've always found it interesting that right person, right message, right time thing, people kind of take for granted, but if you think about it, that's a very difficult thing to do, right? And I think these new channels introduce new ad formats, new ways to target, all of that, and in a lot of ways you can think about it, can you deliver any message to anyone at any time with any amount of intelligence? To do that, you need some capabilities, and as you start looking forward to these new potential ways that people are going to interact and spend their time, that becomes even more important.
So Matt, you want to buy all of us an Oculus so we can do some R&D? Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move us into our last question that I have, and this one is for all of you, and I do expect all of you to answer, so no getting out of this one to Eli and John. So as the saying goes, the only constant in life is change. And so what do you see on the horizon that everyone in this room should be prepared for? And you cannot say privacy, because that would be the easy answer, so something other than privacy. So looking for what we all need to be prepared for, and how being better together is going to get us through the next phase of changes.
I'll go ahead and go first, I guess. Just to kind of go back, I guess, to the metaverse kind of question kind of pops into my mind is, I think there's just going to be more and more connected devices. So even going back to my Salesforce days, even if one of our large clients was completely on the Salesforce stack, a lot of times they're on multiple stacks. It was very difficult. Their SMS marketing, all they would have is a phone number. Somebody signed up for an email campaign. The mobile marketing stack might have a device ID or a cookie, and the email stack is an email address, and their point of sale might have somebody's name and maybe an address. It's very difficult to do identity resolution, even in that world. And I think, like we heard this morning, the metaverse is coming. There's more wearables. There's going to be more and more device IDs that need to be stitched together. And so I think identity resolution is going to go from being kind of an option to being a must, to really tie that message across everything that's happening. Because as we heard this morning, like we didn't really see how mobile and SMS could be the core of our marketing, where 15 years ago that didn't exist. I think new channels are going to be coming, and it's something to be aware of and be moving towards in the future.
Thank you. Eli?
Yeah, so I'll maybe give a kind of slightly different take that's not specific to the data and the technology on this one, but I think the way in which we all work is changing rapidly, and we're most of us are now working remotely. We're figuring out if and when to come into an office, how to get together and collaborate, and I think most of us are struggling with how to effectively acquire talent and retain talent. Everything we're doing ultimately is based on having talented employees that can help lead change and create change. And if we aren't able to figure out how to bring people together and collaborate in settings like this, it's going to be a challenge. So I think what's changing is the way in which we all work, and figuring out how to navigate that effectively together. For us, it's especially challenging because we're bringing 3 different companies together under one umbrella. We're figuring out how to take people that have operated, in one way inside of one company and, merge those teams with people who have operated another way inside of another company. And, despite how much complementary, talent and skill set we have, it's still difficult to fit those pieces together, and to do so, in this new working environment where everything is changing. So.
Yeah. Absolutely, and to be able to maintain the best of all of the different cultures and all of the unique processes that each of those companies can bring to the table. So making sure you don't lose the best of as you come together. Because that's the reason why these three companies have come together, because there are synergies and you don't want to lose the unique aspect that each bring to the table. So completely agree. I mean, that's just been, I think, a tremendous change for all of us in the last 2 years. And, you know, from my perspective, I'm sure many of you out there will continue to be able to have the flexibility, to be able to recruit across the nation can bring so much to the table, but it also brings a lot of challenges for those of us who are leading teams and leading strategies. Okay, Todd, you're up.
Yeah, so maybe kind of splitting the difference between John and Eli. I think on one side, the pace of change in different channels and interaction methods is going to happen. On the other side, kind of having an organization that's resilient and can navigate that is important. And I think kind of in the middle of that is, I think everyone, and you know, specific to our industry and marketing, needs to kind of figure out their set of kind of first principles that they're going to operate from. A lot of these things that we've been talking about haven't happened yet. Third-party cookies are still available on Chrome, so you can kind of put your head in the sand still a little bit and cross your fingers and hope that, you know, Google doesn't make any of those changes. But by the first principles, what I mean is, you know, consumer privacy is not going away, so you need to lead with that and have that be part of the way that you're interacting with your customers. The capabilities that you need as a marketer to acquire customers profitably, grow those customers profitably, retain those customers. If you rise above the fray of all these little changes that are happening, you need to be able to identify your customers. You need to be able to generate insights about those customers, and you need to be able to thoughtfully reach those customers. The way that those things happen will change, but I think focusing on those kind of core principles and then mapping those to the current reality is going to be important for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Well, I'm going to take the easy answer, and I'll give you my 2 cents. So I'm going to go back to privacy, because it really, in my opinion, is probably the most significant change maker that our marketing services industry has seen since the rise of digital. I mean, I truly believe that it is going to change how we look at creating products, how we go to market, how we're interacting with our partners as well as our customers. And so I think the way that we have to work through that, number one, is by making sure we have our eyes open. We're proactively understanding what's happening in the privacy landscape. We're tapping into our network and our resources. We're really looking at what those requirements are. And we're taking a real look at our business operations to understand, do we meet those regulatory requirements today, or do we have a gap, right? And if we have a gap, how are we going to get there? Operationally, how are we going to close that gap so that when we are in the room with our partners, we can come to the table with solutions, with answers, versus questions, or potentially not being able to be as transparent as we would like to be, right? Because our industry has sort of struggled with transparency historically. And so I think the way we do that is we actually make that a reality. And to me, that's what data governance is. It's taking those policies and actually making them a reality in the business, and then being able to stand behind that with monitoring programs and being able to prove it out, but also leading the push for transparency. When we think about what we heard today from Charlene and disruption, and she said it makes you uncomfortable, I do think there are many people in our industry, when you talk about transparency, it makes people uncomfortable. And I think if we're able to work together, we embrace that, and we're able to find solutions to those challenges. I think we have an opportunity to do something really incredible and to be able to give consumers more confidence in what we do as an industry, which I think is important for all of us, not just as being part of this industry, but as consumers. For me as a consumer, I want to be able to have relationships with with brands that I can feel comfortable with, and I want to be able to gain the benefit of that. And so I think, you know, when I'm looking at Better Together, it's us really driving through some of that uncomfortability and getting to some solutions. Okay. I am going to hand it over to Matt.
All right, thank you, Christine, and our esteemed panelists here.